Hi, my name is Lauren and my text set is about American holidays. I chose to do my text set on this topic because holidays are very important to cultural identity and are social gatherings which students with disabilities will be expected to take part in. As a future special education teacher, it is my job to ensure that I will be able to help students with special needs acclimate as much as possible to their future environments, including holidays. For maximum success in holiday festivities, students with disabilities need to be prepared to meet society's behavioral expectations. In order to be prepared for this, they must have a basic knowledge of what takes place during each holiday. Students with special needs may struggle with meeting social expectations and develop anxiety pertaining to new experiences. This can decrease their enjoyment of holidays and their inclusion in the community. This text set also helps to broaden knowledge of other countries, understand history, and understand the evolution of holidays and reinforce or expand concepts learned in social studies. Also, it is a fun topic and therefore can motivate students. This text set is best for children who read at the 4th and 5th grade level, but also includes text for lower functioning students. The books I chose vary a bit in difficulty level because as a special education teacher, I am quite likely to have students who read at different levels or some students who cannot even read at all. Since my students' needs may be so diverse, I also took into account how easy the books are to adapt when I chose them. All texts can be adapted for lower functioning students through peer reading, guided discussions, oral readings to large groups, breaking readings into smaller segments, repeated readings, and reading guides that can be paired with recorded instructions. As I will probably have several grade levels in my classroom, I chose standards from several grades. This text set I created can be used to help students meet all of the standards listed below. For grade 4, Reading Standards for Literature, Key Ideas and Details. Determine a theme of a story, drama, or poem from details in the text, and summarize the text. Reading Standards for Literature, Key Ideas and Details. Refer to details and examples in a text when explaining what the text says explicitly and when drawing inferences from the text. Reading Standards for Literature, Craft and Structure. Explain major differences between poems, drama, and prose, and refer to the structural elements of poems such as verse, rhythm, and meter, and drama, such as cast of characters, setting, descriptions, dialogue, stage directions, when writing or speaking about a text. For students reading at the grade 5 level, Reading Standards for Literature, Key Ideas and Details. Determine a theme of a story, drama, or poem from details in the text, including how characters in a story or drama respond to challenges or how the speaker in a poem reflects upon a topic, and summarize the text. Reading Standards for Literature, Craft and Structure. Explain how a series of chapters, scenes, or stanzas fits together to provide the overall structure of a particular story, drama, or poem. Reading Standards for Literature, Integration of Knowledge and Ideas. Analyze how visual and multimedia elements contribute to the meaning, tone, or beauty of a text, such as a graphic novel, multimedia presentation of fiction, folktale, myth, or poem. The first text I chose is called Thanksgiving Day at Our House. This is a book of poems written from the point of view of children who are describing what they do at Thanksgiving with their family. This book begins the night before Thanksgiving Day with the cleaning of the house and food preparations, and ends Thanksgiving night as the children say their prayers. I chose this book for several reasons. Firstly, it is a fun way to teach about alliteration, meter, and rhyme. Secondly, the vivid pictures are great for students who struggle with visualizing a story. They can look at the pictures and imagine the figures in the pictures moving around and speaking. In a sense, this book provides scaffolding for teaching imagination. This book is also perfect for a special education classroom because it can easily be adapted for students who are at different levels. Students who cannot read can listen to the story being read to them and can discuss the poems in the story. Children who are near the end of 3rd grade or are in 4th grade can read these poems independently or with a partner. One thing I really like about this book is it is a very motivating text for a person of any age because the silly poems can make anyone laugh. The second book I chose for my text set is just called Thanksgiving Day. This is a short informational chapter book for students who are just beginning to read chapter books. It begins by talking about the history of various giving thanks ceremonies and celebrations around the world, beginning with a celebration done by the Greeks 4,500 years ago. Next, the book gives the history of the first American Thanksgiving, then tells how George Washington made Thanksgiving a national holiday. After that, the book gives examples of how Thanksgiving is currently celebrated. There is a glossary in the back of this book so students can look up difficult words that they do not know. This glossary could come quite in handy as this is a challenge book in the text set. I chose this book because it tells the story of Thanksgiving in an unbiased way, thus providing great historical context for the celebration students will later take part in. Also, this book provides some of the differentiation needed in this text set. More advanced students simply need more advanced material. This book can certainly provide that. I also chose some very unique texts. One of these is a PDF social story called What to Expect on the 4th of July. A social story is a short story describing a novel social situation that a student may find uncomfortable initially. The social story will describe strategies a student can use to make himself or herself feel more comfortable. Like most social stories, this one has only a few lines of text per page and very large pictures that depict scenes. This particular social story describes how fireworks look and sound and provides bright pictures of fireworks so that students who have never seen fireworks before can have some idea of what to expect. The narrator of this story talks about how if a person does not like fireworks, he or she can cover his or her ears and close his or her eyes to decrease the stimulation. I included this text because it is quite practical for the population I will be teaching. Social stories are proven to be very effective with students who have autism and students who have difficulty coping with new experiences, so this is the perfect text for my class. Also, the fact that it is written at the 4th grade level but is quite short means that students who have low tolerance for reading or become easily frustrated can experience success with reading a full text faster than they would with many other texts. Another unique text I chose does not have any actual title, so I decided to call it Letters to Santa. This text is a short newspaper article that contains copies of 2 short letters children wrote to Santa about 100 years ago. This article is written at the level of someone who is near the end of 4th grade or is in 5th grade. I chose this article because it is quite a motivating text for students to read. I think most students would be quite interested in knowing what little boys and girls wrote to Santa about 100 years ago. Another reason I chose this text is that it can spark a discussion about the evolution of language. This article uses words such as buggy and sleigh and phrases such as, "Do send my little cousin." These are simply not words and phrases we hear often. This text is also full of different types of punctuation. In these short 3 paragraphs there are periods, colons, semicolons, and commas. Although punctuation is certainly not the most important part of reading, it is still something students need to learn. It is rare to see so many different types of punctuation in a children's text, and I would like my students to be exposed to it. This text is also useful for students who need to experience success with completing a text quickly because it is so short. The next text in my set is an online children's newspaper written at the 5th grade reading level. It is called The Meaning of Memorial Day. I chose this text and this topic because for many students, Memorial Day is nothing but a day to stay at home and sleep instead of going to school. They have no idea of its meaning. This text gives a brief overview of the history of Memorial Day and why it is a holiday that should be celebrated. It also describes various things people can do to celebrate this national holiday. I chose this article because it is an unintimidating way for students to learn how to read a newspaper. This article is structured exactly like an adult newspaper, complete with headings, pictures, and captions. Students can practice looking at the headings of sections to determine whether or not they are interested in reading it. It is important that they learn this because most adults do not read every section of every newspaper. They look at headings and pictures, then decide whether or not they want to continue reading. As students with disabilities often struggle with learning new skills independently, I would like to teach them how to read newspapers in class so that they are not lost when they try to read newspapers at home. After that, I have a similar text called History of Labor Day. This text is an online newspaper article from newzellaforkids.com and is also written at the 5th grade level. It begins by describing the working conditions of wage slaves in America, which were simply deplorable. Next, the article tells how workers formed labor unions so that they could protect themselves and future employees from abusive bosses. As a result of the efforts of these labor unions, workers were given rights and child labor laws were put in place. I included this text because it gives students additional practice with reading newspapers and reinforces the skills that students will learn from reading the previous text. In addition, it teaches important context about the meaning of Labor Day, which is something that many students have no clue. The next text I chose is a YouTube video about the life of Martin Luther King Jr. It is great for students in the 4th grade and above. The narration of his life is accompanied by animation and selections of his speeches. One speech that is featured in the text is the famous I Have a Dream speech. A narration of the impact of the bus boycotts is also provided. I chose this video because it is very good for students who have short attention spans, as students with cognitive disabilities often do. In addition, it delivers important history context that students can understand without having to struggle through decoding words and deciphering the meaning of written sentences. Also, the animation and narration holds student attention quite well. It would be difficult for students to tune out this video, which is a sign that it is a good text to use in a classroom. After all, who wants to watch a boring video in class? I don't. A well-done video can turn a text into a treat. Students who watch this video will not struggle to retain the information presented, because they will have been interested while watching it.
He still felt he had a calling larger than
For your convenience, I embedded this video into the PowerPoint. If you simply wiggle the mouse on the left side of the screen, the video will show up and you can press play and watch it directly in this PowerPoint.
Was called the bus boycott. The bus boycotts began as a movement driven by the need for equal rights and desegregation of the public bus system. But as time went on, these boycotts became headline news. On these buses, people with white skin could sit in the front of the bus, but African Americans had to sit in the back or give up their seat to that of their white counterparts. Thanks to Martin and another now famous woman, Rosa Parks, the Supreme Court found the segregation to be unconstitutional. Martin became a world figure and was named Man of the Year by Time magazine. Martin made many speeches in his life. but his most memorable and historical one was held in Washington, D.C. Over 250,000 people flooded the Washington Monument to hear Martin's I Have a Dream speech.
So let freedom reign from the prodigious hilltops of New Hampshire. Let freedom reign. When we let it reign from every village and every hamlet, from every state and every city, we will be able to speed up that day when all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual, free at last, thank God Almighty, we are free at last.
From that moment on, even after his assassination, Martin Luther King Jr. cemented his name, among many others, as an American icon and revolutionary. Now the world, while not perfect, can see everyone for who they are and not for the color of their skin.
The next text I have is also a video. It is called Bet You Didn't Know, Easter Traditions. This video is fast-paced with historical facts about Easter. It gives an overview of the origin of Easter traditions and symbols and tells how the pagan Roman festival of Eostre, the goddess of spring and fertility, was adapted by the church in order to do away with the pagan holiday. The enthusiastic narration and constant switching of pictures holds attention quite well, which is one of the reasons I chose this text. In addition, it presents content that many students do not know and could inspire conversation about how holidays evolve. Of equal importance is the fact that this video can get students very excited about Easter. Excitement about holidays is very important for students with disabilities who struggle with anxiety about new experiences because their excitement can drown out any nervousness so that they and their families have a more enjoyable time. This video is also embedded on the left-hand side of the page. If you would like to watch it, just wiggle the mouse over the left side and then click play.
Isn't the only animal associated with the holiday. In Switzerland, a cuckoo delivers the Easter eggs, while in different parts of Germany, kids wait for the Easter fox, chick, rooster, or stork. Though eggs also symbolize fertility and renewal, they may have become popular on Easter for a more practical reason. For centuries, the Christian church banned eggs along with other foods during Lent, and it became a special treat to eat them again at Easter. Decorating eggs is one of the oldest Easter customs. One of history's most lavish Easter traditions developed in late 19th century Russia, when royalty and other members of high society began giving each other jewel-encrusted eggs as Easter gifts. The man behind these insanely valuable eggs was the artist, jeweler, goldsmith Peter Carl Fabergé, who was commissioned by Tsar Alexander III to create jeweled Easter eggs for his wife. For most Americans, however, Easter is about the sweet stuff: candy. U.S. candy makers produce some 90 million chocolate bunnies and 16 billion jelly beans for Easter each year. Jelly beans were invented in the 17th century, but they only became an Easter candy in the 1930s after merchants pointed out how much they looked like eggs. Today, more candy is sold for Easter than any other holiday, except for Halloween. And more than 88% of American parents prepare Easter baskets for their kids. From its powerful religious significance to its popular customs, Easter ranks among our most widely celebrated holidays. This spring, sweeten up your celebration with a little history and some fun Easter facts we bet you didn't know.
After that, I chose a text that is an actual book. This book is called Hanukkah. It is an informational text that gives the history of Hanukkah. Thousands of years ago, the Greeks had made the Jews their subjects and forced them to worship Greek gods and follow Greek customs. This angered the Jews who wanted to worship their own God more than anything. A small group of Jewish fighters beat the much larger army of the Greek oppressors, thus winning the Jews their religious freedom back. This victory seemed impossible, so an annual celebration known as Hanukkah was invented to celebrate it. This book is an excellent resource because it is filled with maps, pictures, and captions on every page. There are also "Did you know" bubbles that give more context and bold words to look up in a glossary. The text features such as chapter headings, captions, glossary, and vocabulary words act as scaffolding that can help students get to the point where they can use real textbooks. Also, the information in the book broadens cultural knowledge and tolerance and tells students exactly what they could expect if they took part in this holiday. This book can help make foreign-sounding holidays seem less intimidating and less strange to students who have disabilities. Next, I have a short book called Christmas. This book first talks about how people currently celebrate Christmas, then tells the religious story of Christmas. After that, it describes Saturnalia, an ancient Roman holiday celebrated on December 25th. The Catholic Church did away with Saturnalia, which was a pagan holiday, by replacing it with Christmas, as no one knows the exact date of Jesus' birth. The book then describes Christmas masses and how St. Nicholas became part of the celebration. Each page is labeled with headings like it is a chapter book, and there is a table of contents, pictures with captions, a glossary, an index, and links to websites. Key vocabulary words are written in bold so that students can more easily identify them. In a sense, this book is structured much like a mini textbook, which means it can help students with special needs learn how to use the features of a textbook before they have to actually read a large and intimidating textbook in class. Another reason why I included this book is because it is full of facts and theories students will not easily find on their own. I also included another book about Hanukkah. This particular text is a short story of a Jewish family celebrating Hanukkah. It is written at the 4th grade level. This story describes what each family member does for the holiday and describes making potato pancakes and decorations, as well as making and playing with a dreidel, which is like a small clay top. It also describes taking part in parties, songs, and dances. After the story, there is a short informational passage about the battle where the Jews won their freedom from the Greeks. I included this text because it gives a very good idea of what to expect on this holiday, and the animated pictures help with visualization, which many students with autism struggle with. Also, students who read this book will get plenty of practice decoding nonsense words when they try to read the baby talk the author included in this book. The author included the baby's responses to everything his siblings said to him. Reading what the baby says is a true test of decoding. Through the creation of this text set, I have learned that making a text set is much harder than it sounds. Each book must be reviewed for content, quality, and text features because not all books are equal. Some books are labeled as being for 4th graders, but have no pictures and have such watered-down storylines that they are completely uninteresting. Other books are not labeled as being for any particular grade level, so the student must review them for grammar, content, and vocabulary before giving them to a class to read. Evaluating books involves a learning curve. When I evaluated my first few texts, I felt like I was spending an eternity on each one. Once I had a better idea of what I was doing, I could flip through books at the library and determine in a few glances which books I wanted for my text set. Making this text set also gave me ideas about how I will use this in my classroom. If I have students who are able to write, I will have them write blurbs and reviews about each book they read to make a portfolio. Students who cannot write can make sentences out of PECS, which stands for Picture Exchange Communication System, and turn that into a portfolio. Also, I would like to have a field trip to a library where students make their own text sets about topics that interest them. I would also like to make text sets that correspond to units in one or more subjects. Sometimes, I will let students pick text set topics for these classroom sets. Also, I would like to have my students read text set books during free time if they have finished their work early. In this way, I will use books as a reward for finishing work early. I could also read difficult text set books to the students during circle time before making them available for independent reading. That way, students will not become as frustrated while reading the books on their own because they will already be more familiar with the content. So, I hope you liked my presentation, and I hope that you will find some of my ideas and books useful in your own presentations and in your own text sets in the future. Thank you and have a great day.